the nation's commercial capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reported tonight,
Ijoma Oyato.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, federal government lifts suspension on residency training for doctors in all federal hospitals, but says appraisal of program continues. More concerns over threats posed by the deadly Ebola virus disease as Health Minister establishes national response team to check outbreak. Nasarawa State Governor takes urgent steps to end clashes between Fulanis and crop owners, convenes meeting of national rulers and the police. And Syrian crisis worsens with more than 3 million people now refugees.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's foreign reserves grow by over $555 million to $39.62 billion.
On sports news, World Football Governing Body FIFA threatens another ban on Nigeria over the lingering leadership crisis rocking the country's football federation.
It came with a bang when it was least expected. 16,000 doctors fired in one fell swoop. That's all in the past now, with a directive today by the federal government recalling all the doctors with immediate effect. But there's a caveat. All chief medical directors and directors of training centers are to issue reinstatement letters to the resident doctors. The federal government appealed to the doctors to see their reinstatement as a gesture to engender greater commitment and dedication to their duties. The President's Special Assistant on Public Affairs, Dr. Doyin Okukwe, explains more about the federal government's decision.
You can actually define it as a change of position. A major issue, we had a major issue at hand. The doctors were on strike, and they were on strike for so long.
Yes.
And part of the problems they were complaining about was the arrangements with the residency that was not totally acceptable to them, and they believed that it was not structured properly. And government and the NMA had a concurrence on that issue. So when the doctors were on strike, that gave a veritable opportunity for the government to seize the opportunity to actually see the possibility of looking into the residency with a view of straightening out whatever areas that are not okay, with a proper idea of how, delivering healthcare service, to Nigerian people in a much, much better and efficient manner.
Is it right to say that there appears to have been some agreement reached now between the government and the residency doctor?
Let us separate the demands of the NMA from the residency issue. The residency issue was an issue that the NMA and government had an agreement on. When I say agreement now, not that they signed a formal agreement, but there was a concurrence of opinion. The NMA is not satisfied with the way the residency program was being run. Government itself was not satisfied. So the fact that there was a strike ongoing and was protracted, you will have given the government a good opportunity to look once and for all into the residency program and see how to straighten it out. But as per the demands of the NMA, from law now, virtually most of the 24 or 25 demands have virtually been met. Leaving out just in some cases issues about circulars and the wordings of circulars, but in principle, majority of what was demanded by NMA had been granted even much, much longer before the strike was called off. And that's part of the frustration that the government felt, because most of the demands were already acceded to by government, and the strike, the continuation of the strike was something that was difficult to justify.
The position that government, I understand government is still going to look at the whole residency program. Does that mean there's still a possibility that the issue of the resident program being taken off totally could come up again?
Well, when you are trying to restructure a system, you cannot predict, or project really what the outcome will be. I'm sure there will be reports, there will be recommendations, and at the appropriate time, those recommendations and reports will be studied by government and they will be faithfully applied.
A new national response team with a mandate to coordinate containment efforts against the Ebola virus disease has now been inaugurated with the Health Minister as chairman. All state health commissioners are to function as incident officers for a unified response to EVD. Our correspondent Mary Alale Yusuf looks at the new development in the fight.
This disease has thrown parts of West Africa into very difficult times. With the spread of the virus into Rivers State, the federal government seems to have cranked up containment measures. At a press conference in Rivers State, the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Samson Parker, explains how the Minister of Health and all commissioners for health across the country plan to put a halt to the spread.
We have one Ebola response team in Nigeria now. Overall leader of this group is the Honorable Minister of Health. I am in charge of the state. We have the incident manager also in Lagos.
He also explains that the ECOWAS officials slipping through the cracks was a very deliberate action.
Who was one of the diplomats that received Koya in Lagos? So the Soya, Patrick Soya in Lagos, sneaked out of Lagos after the death of Soya. After the death of Soya, sneaked into Port Harcourt in connivance with one other ECOWAS staff. At that time, Lagos was looking for him. They couldn't trace him. Then they found out he boarded a flight to Port Harcourt. They sent us his phone number. He put off his phone number.
It is believed that traditional rulers wield a lot of influence where their subjects are concerned. Perhaps this is why the Ondo state government is represented here in a meeting with them about how to keep the state free of the Ebola virus disease. Dr. Kola Ademujimi pleads for caution during gatherings.
Any phenomenon that we encourage people to come from outside for now, for the next 1 or 2 months, if it is possible to postpone or if it is possible to limit the scope to ensure that people don't come from outside to avoid contact with any suspected cases or cases of Ebola virus disease.
In Lagos, former national president of the Nigerian Veterinary Medicine Association, Dr. Charles Ibe, believes there's been some misinformation about the connection of bushmeat to the Ebola virus disease.
Roast monkeys are being condemned, or and that by the time they finish roasting it, those viruses shouldn't be there. The people you should be talking about, the people who processed it, if I thought they have it. The only organ responsible for condemning meat in this country based on infection is under the Animal Diseases Act of 1988 through the Federal Livestock Department. And those powers have been sealed to states, Director of Veterinary Medicine in states.
At a Nasarawa State Executive Council meeting, the Commissioner for Health talks about the process of signing an MOU with some foreign partners to set up a research center in the state.
The MOU is before us. They have signed their own part of it. Right now it is with the Minister of Justice to go through the MOU, and hopefully before the end of this week we shall have signed our own part of it.
The government has also embarked on a house-to-house sensitization campaign on the Ebola and human immunodeficiency viruses across 9 local government areas in the state. Desperate times, people say, call for desperate measures. In this case, some of the measures appear to be using positions of influence to compel appropriate behavior among the people and forming strong institutions to deal with the Ebola virus emergency. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television.
We move to politics now. The People's Democratic Party has cleared the former chairman of the EFCC, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, former military administrator of Lagos State, General Buba Marwa, and Marcus Gundiri to participate in the Adamawa State governorship by-election primary holding in September. This is contained in a statement signed by the National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Mr. Olisa Metu. He explained that the 3 aspirants were granted waivers to take part in the primaries, while all other aspirants are also to participate in the exercise. Meanwhile, the PDP National Working Committee has expressed confidence in the leadership of the National Chairman, Adamu Muazu, to ensure that the nomination process will be transparent.
The decision of the Working Committee is to unanimously, based on the provisions of our Constitution, the stringent, rigid process for the application of the waiver. The Working Committee considered the waivers, the waiver application by General Buba Marwa, Engineer Marcus Gundiri, and Malam Nuhu Ribadu, and we completely granted the waivers to the gentleman. The PDP believes that in spite of any other issue, it is great and is part of the strength of the PDP that these 3 distinguished Nigerians decided to join the process. The primaries will be held in Adamawa, and it is only the people of Adamawa and their voice that will decide who will be the candidate of the party. But I restate, we're happy that these 3 prominent, notable Nigerians, distinguished Nigerians, are part of the process on the platform of our party.
In part 2, after the break, Nigerian Bar Association elects new leadership at Owerri Conference. That's in a moment. You stay with us.